I landed in America with a suitcase, a camera, and 30 years of assumptions. I left with none of them intact. Look, I've traveled to 40 countries. I've seen poverty. I've seen chaos. I've seen beauty in places nobody films. But nothing prepared me for what I actually found in the United States of America. And before you think this is going to be some anti-America hit piece, stop. Because what shocked me most wasn't what was broken. It was the contradiction. The stunning, heartbreaking, inexplicable contradiction of this place. So today, I'm taking you through everything. No filter. No political agenda. Just what one traveler saw with his own eyes, and what the data confirmed was very, very real. But wait! Before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment, I subscribe below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Let's go. America controls approximately 30% of the entire world's wealth. One country, 30% of everything. So I'm standing in Midtown Manhattan, glass towers, luxury cars, designer storefronts, and I'm thinking, okay, I get it. I see the wealth. Then I walked 3 blocks east, and that's where I met Miguel. Miguel is 34 years old. He grew up in Mexico City watching American movies, American TV shows, American dreams. He saved for 2 years to visit New York. 2 years. And within his first hour of walking the streets, he passed a tent encampment that stretched half a city block. I didn't know where to look, he told me. I felt ashamed for staring, but I couldn't stop. The smell hit him before the sight did. Damp concrete, old fabric, the particular silence of people who learned not to ask for anything. He'd expected Times Square. He found something that reminded him of home. Except back home, he said, people at least talk to each other. The U.S. Census Bureau confirmed it in 2023. 37.9 million Americans live below the poverty line, in the richest country in human history. But the tent cities, as jarring as they were, weren't even close to the most alarming thing I found. Let me give you one number that broke my brain. In San Francisco, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $3,200 a month. The average monthly paycheck on California's minimum wage? $2,400. That's not a typo. That's not a bad month. That's Tuesday in America. The Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies confirmed in 2023 that 22 million American households spend more than half their entire income just keeping a roof overhead. Before food, before medicine, before anything. I want you to meet Sarah. Sarah is 58 years old. She was a registered nurse in Columbus, Ohio for 26 years. She raised 2 kids. She owned a modest home. She did everything the way you're supposed to. Then her rent doubled in 18 months when her building was sold to an investment firm. She couldn't keep up. And when I met her, Sarah was living in her car in a Phoenix parking lot that the city had officially designated a safe parking zone, one of dozens that now exists across American cities for people in exactly her situation. She wasn't ashamed. She was exhausted. There's a difference. I'm not lazy, she said. I worked my whole life. The math just stopped adding up. That phrase stayed with me the entire trip. The math stopped adding up. Because she didn't fail the system. The system failed the math. And just when I thought I understood the money problem, the food situation made my jaw drop. 44 million Americans face food insecurity in 2023. That number comes directly from the USDA's Economic Research Service. And buried inside that number are 13 million children who didn't know with certainty if they'd eat dinner. In America, I want you to sit with that before I keep going. I met James in Detroit. James is 67. He spent 40 years on the factory floor. Union card, pension plan, the whole picture. Then the pension got restructured during the 2008 bankruptcy crisis. And what he thought was a security became a fraction of what he'd been promised. Now James makes a daily choice. Insulin. All food. Not both. Oh. I try to eat one real meal a day, he told me, sitting in a community center where volunteers had laid out a dinner spread. Not because I'm watching my weight. He smiled when he said it, this tired, dignified smile I won't forget, just because that's what there is. Here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. Americans throw away 80 million tons of food every single year. That's from the Refed Food Waste Report 2023. 80 million tons, while 44 million people don't have enough. The food exists. The hunger is not a supply problem. That kept me up at night more than anything else I saw. But then I started paying attention to something beneath all of it. Something holding all these problems in place like a locked door nobody wants to touch. America isn't one country right now. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean it in the most literal, on-the-ground way I've ever witnessed in any nation I visited. Pew Research published data in 2024 showing that 80% of Americans say they cannot have a respectful political conversation with someone from the other party. 80%. Let me tell you about Linda and Tom. They live on the same street in rural Tennessee, maybe 40 feet apart. Linda is 63. Tom is 68. They shared a fence, borrowed each other's tools, watched each other's dogs for 22 years of quiet, functional neighborliness. They haven't spoken since November 2020. Same street, same view, invisible wall. Neither of them thinks they're the problem. Both of them are lonely. Neither one will move first. A research team from the University of Maryland found in 2022 that political polarization in the United States has reached its highest measured point since Reconstruction, the period after the Civil War. Walking through certain parts of this country, you don't see political yard signs as decoration. You see battle lines, people performing their identity for an audience that will never engage with them. As someone from the outside, someone with no horse in this race, it looked like a country grieving something it couldn't name. And then I visited the healthcare system. That's when things got genuinely frightening. I asked an American woman, late 40s, perfectly healthy, what she would do if she had a medical emergency and needed an ambulance. She laughed. Then she got very quiet. I'd call my husband first, see if he could drive me. The average cost of an ambulance ride in the United States is between $1,200 and $2,000, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation's 2023 report. Not the surgery, not the hospital room, the ride. I was traveling with Amora, 29 years old, visiting from Lagos, Nigeria. On our second day in Chicago, she twisted her ankle badly stepping off a curb. We looked at each other. She shook her head immediately. No ambulance. We took an Uber to urgent care. An x-ray to confirm nothing broken. Some wrap bandaging. A pamphlet. The bill was $780. For an x-ray. Amora stared at it for a long time. In Nigeria, we don't have everything, she said slowly. But this, she held up the paper. This would be incomprehensible. Here's the number that should confuse every single person watching this. The United States spends more per capita on healthcare than any other developed nation on earth. And yet the Commonwealth Fund's 2023 International report ranks America dead last in health outcomes among 11 high-income countries. Spending the most, getting the least. I stood in that waiting room watching people negotiate their own medical bills like they were haggling at a street market, choosing between the name-brand prescription and the generic not based on what worked better, but on what their bank account could handle that week. None of this, not the poverty, not the politics, not the healthcare, prepared me for what I found when I left the coast and drove into the middle of the country. Most people who visit America see New York or Los Angeles, maybe Miami, maybe Chicago. Nobody films the middle. I drove through it. According to the USDA, 331 rural U.S. counties have lost more than 10% of their population since 2010. Not declining, slowly, emptying. I stopped in a small town in Kansas and met Earl. Earl is 71. His grandfather broke this land. His father farmed it. He farmed it. Fourth generation. Same soil, same horizon. But corporate agricultural operations now dominate the region. Massive industrial farms that undercut his prices on everything. His town's hospital closed in 2019. The elementary school closed in 2021. The last grocery store shut its doors in 2022. Earl drive 47 miles for groceries. Main Street, he said. And then he just pointed. I looked. Boarded windows. Weeds pushing up through sidewalk cracks. A hand-painted sign on the one remaining gas station that said, "We're still here." I took a photo of that sign. I've looked at it 100 times since. And then, right when I felt the heaviest about everything I'd seen, something happened that knocked me completely sideways. I need to tell you about Chen Wei. Chen Wei is 45. He flew from Shanghai, his first time in America. He told me before the trip that he expected radical individualism. Every man for himself. The cultural stereotype, fully distilled. What he found was different. He watched strangers help a woman carry a stroller up subway stairs without being asked. He saw a restaurant owner in New Orleans quietly slip extra food into a takeout bag for a man counting coins at the counter. He visited Mayfield, Kentucky, devastated by a tornado in 2021, and found that volunteers from 800 miles away still show up on weekends to help rebuild. I've never seen a country, Chen Wei told me, his voice catching, so broken and so alive at the same time. Here's the number that floored me most of all. America has the highest volunteerism rate of any G7 nation. 63 million Americans volunteered formally in 2023, according to AmeriCorps. 63 million people. On top of the informal, uncounted, unfilmed kindness I watched happen on ordinary streets on ordinary days. The contradiction of America is not a bug. I think it might be the whole point. This is a country where the systems are visibly, measurably failing, and the people are visibly, stubbornly compensating. Where the politics have turned neighbors into strangers, and strangers still somehow become neighbors. Where the wealth gap is staggering, and the volunteer who drives 4 hours to stack sandbags doesn't think of themselves as doing anything exceptional. I sat down on a curb in Memphis on my last evening. Sun going down. Someone's radio playing from an open window above me. And I thought, I genuinely don't know what to make of this place. I still don't. But I'm going back. So here's what I need from you right now. If you're American, does this match your reality? Did I get something wrong? Did I miss something that matters? Drop it in the comments, because I was a visitor. You live it every single day. And your perspective is worth more than any statistic I cited in this video. If you're not American, does this change whether you'd visit? Because for me, it made me want to go deeper. Not despite the contradictions. Because of them. And if this video made you think, made you feel something, or showed you an America you hadn't seen before, share it with one person. Just one. Because the most important conversations about a country usually happen outside of it. I've traveled to 40 countries. I have never left one more confused, more moved, and more hungry to return. So broken. So alive. I'll see you in the next one.